Namaste and welcome again to India in Classrooms. This is the third and final video in the series titled Indian Civilization 1, 2, and 3. In the previous video, we started looking into symbolism in India, and in this video, we'll go a little deeper so that we can truly understand what some of the forms stand for. As you know, India is a diverse country with culture that spans across all the religions of the world. But the majority of Indians are Hindus, and therefore you'll see a lot of these Hindu influences around the country, traditions, festivals, which are all based on many of the forms that you perhaps cannot understand until they have been explained to you in a manner that is meaningful. So I hope that you enjoy the last video. People often ask Hindus, how does life originate for a Hindu? Now, we know that energy can never be created and can never die. It has always existed. The only thing is it contracts and expands. So let us start at a point where energy is asleep. This is a very interesting representation of energy in its dormant state, in its dormant potential state. What does potential mean? That it has the ability to become something. So here is energy shown lying, and the name for potential energy is Vishnu. So Vishnu is shown lying on the coils of time. So the snake here does not represent evil for Hindus. This snake has a name. It's called Ananta. We get the word Anta, end, in English from the Sanskrit word Anta. Ananta means unending, which means eternal. So here is this amazing illustration of potential energy lying asleep and dormant forever, waiting to awaken. So life before the entire cosmos is formed is asleep here. Hindus understood that when life awakens, it awakens as an atom with a bang of light and sound. So both light and sound represent that almighty power which becomes everything that exists. The sound of is considered to be the underlying sound of the cosmos, of this universe, that the sages could hear in deep meditation. And that is something that even we can hear if we were to meditate as deeply. And that's when you are in yoga, you're at peace because you are in sync with the sound of the universe. So what happened was that the potential form of energy, which was Vishnu, changed its form to become Brahma, the creative, kinetic form of energy. And that is represented as a lotus that is expanding, as a flower that is blooming. So the birth of a new universe is shown as a lotus in Hindu philosophy. And another form that represents the beginning of life or of a new life cycle is light. And therefore, Hindus worship fire and the sun as that presence, the presence of God. So now we know that everything that exists, all forms of life, are forms of energy. In the beginning, when we are generating as life, as a seed in our mother's womb, we're a form of Brahma, the creative or the generative form of energy. As we live, breathe, eat, drink, sleep, we are the operative form of energy, which is also known as Vishnu. So we take on the Vishnu form of energy. And then all forms of life disintegrate, degenerate. And what form of energy causes that to happen? It is Shiva. Shiva also means that which is not. And what that means is, it's not that it doesn't exist. Shiva is that form which exists although it cannot be seen. So that is our unseen form. When our body degenerates and seems to disappear, the body disappears, but we continue to exist in that form, the formless, which is Shiva. And we have the power to regenerate because energy never dies. It can only change its form. And therefore, we regenerate into a different form of life. And once again, our life cycle begins in a different form. This is reincarnation. So just as this entire universe generates, operates, and degenerates, generates, operates, and dissolves, it's constantly going on. The same cycle happens in every cell of our body. So if you look at the cells in our body, they come into being, they are born, then they live, and then they die. So every cell, every organ in our body is constantly changing. It's constantly being born and dissolving. If you see this cycle in everything, seasons, we have plants that grow and then they live and die. This cycle continues all the time, and that is what is represented in this picture, the Nataraja. Nataraja means the king of dance. And that is the dance of life, the dance of energy, the dance of God, God. Therefore, this Sanskrit syllable, Om, represents the infinite and eternal cycle of life. It represents the eternal law or Sanatana Dharma. Now, there is one law of nature that absolutely defines Hinduism, and that law is the law of karma. Not karma, but karma. And what is the law of karma? Everything in nature is based on cause and effect. For every action, there is a reaction. You will find that we have global warming today. That didn't just happen. It is the result of certain things that we have done which has caused nature to respond in that manner. Similarly, a lot of our wildfires, uh, all of these various natural disasters that we have faced are really the effect of certain cause. So the same thing applies to human behavior. Every action of ours results in a reaction. If we think badly or we act badly, it reflects back at us. And for that matter, it's not only action with your hands. Even thinking is an act. So a bad thought will reflect back at you. It need not be immediate, but sometime later in life, you realize that, oh, I know why that happened, because I thought something or I did something, and only you know that. So this law of karma is extremely important to understand for Hindus, and it's not written by a person. Again, it is natural law. This slide could be very confusing to someone. How is it possible that all paths, all religions could lead to the same truth? Now, let me give you the example of mathematics. Mathematics is not something that has been made up by man. It is what nature has in everything that exists. There is a structure. There is certain mathematical structure in every being, whether it's a shell or a fruit or a leaf or a human being. There is math in everything. So obviously the principles of mathematics are universal, and they can be understood by anyone who wishes to understand the principles of mathematics. But for that, we have teachers who will explain it to us in different ways. So all of these teachers have their own language, their own methods, their own examples. Does that mean that this is different mathematics, or is it the same math, but which is explained by different teachers? Similarly, the truth about this universe, about life, wisdom, as we call it, that wisdom cannot be multiple. It is the same universal wisdom. We just have to arrive at it through different ways. Whatever path is available to us will lead us to that. Now, does that mean that we will all arrive at that wisdom at the same time or in the same lifetime? No. What Hindus understand is that if you do not arrive at that wisdom in this lifetime, then your body will shed, but you will continue to seek another body through which you will be able to gain more knowledge and perhaps that ultimate wisdom. So in some lifetime, we, each one of us, have the ability, the potential to arrive at that wisdom. And that, according to Hindus, is finding your own God, is self-realization. So now we understand what Hinduism really is all about, that it is actually Sanatana Dharma, the eternal law, and all of the things that it represents or it teaches, that we're all connected like one big flower. If you hurt one petal, the entire flower is affected. Here is a picture of how a Hindu would celebrate their birthday. They would not blow out the flame, but let it burn out on its own, because life for a Hindu is eternal. The body may drop off, but your soul, your Atma, will continue to live forever. And therefore, you'll find that this flame represents that Almighty Presence, that God which is formless but is present in that flame. So you will find that the fire is always present for any special occasion. Even for a wedding, the flame represents God as witness. What you see here is a house-warming ceremony. And literally, you warm the home with a fire, people sit around the fire and pour in fragrant spices and herbs that fill the home with the smoke that purifies the environment. And with it, it brings the blessings of all the people gathered there, as well as the Almighty God. The fire is also significant for Hindus in death. Hindus cremate their dead and don't bury them, because cremation means to burn the body and get rid of all the bacteria and germs that may be present in the body. Hindus also believe that it is only the body that has deteriorated and degenerated and died, but the person that is within is the soul, and that will live forever. We've already seen that the snake does not represent evil in Hindu culture, but it has many different symbolic meanings. In this case, the snake represents the powerful energy that sits coiled within you. And with yoga, it is possible to see that energy, to discover one's own infinite energy that we have within us. And it can also help you to control that energy in a way that it can give you great wisdom, great understanding, and enlightenment. So all of those heads of the snake represent enlightenment. It's like a halo around the person. Here you see, of course, Patanjali, who taught yoga. But the halo of snakes' heads is really like a protection for anyone who is enlightened. There is no fear. Since we're discussing symbolism, let's look at India's flag. The saffron on top represents, yes, you guessed it, fire and the flame of knowledge. But saffron also represents all of the sacrifices that people have made throughout India's history. People have sacrificed their lives during Islamic invasions, and during the fight for freedom and independence against the British. White represents purity and truth, and the wheel represents continuity, progress, and truth. Green represents growth and prosperity. In this slide, I've tried to show you the diversity of monuments and architecture in India. These are all the places where people go to worship. The Hindus go to mandirs or temples. The Muslims go to masjids or mosques. The Sikhs worship at a gurudwara. Zoroastrians go to fire temples. The Buddhists go to Buddhist temples. The Jews go to the synagogue. The Christians worship in church. And the Jains call them either mandirs or derasars. And this is why India is a land of beautiful diversity. And I've shown her as a woman wearing a sari with gems of diversity. We've discussed two misrepresentations. One is the idea of Arya, which is not a race, but a person who is civilized. Two is polytheism, and we know now that Hindus do not worship many gods, nor do they worship one god. For a Hindu, everything that exists is a form of God. Now we come to this idea of the caste system. This is something that has been clearly misunderstood by not only Westerners, but even many Indians. In ancient India, there was a very efficient social order based on people's abilities to perform certain duties. So we had at the top of society people who were highly regarded for their knowledge, and those were the teachers, the guides, who would guide the rulers as well as the people in general. Then we had the rulers who would protect the people of the land. Then there were merchants and traders who took care of all the resources of the land. And then you had all of the people who worked as farmers and weavers and potters and ironsmiths and all of those who could do certain skills. Now, as long as there was mutual regard and respect, this system worked very well. But unfortunately, what happened was that this entire system collapsed as soon as the idea of superiority and inferiority came in. And this may have happened because people tried to gain control and power through their own position in society. It could be that the people who had more power, such as the merchants and the rulers and the teachers, all tried to misrepresent the idea of this system so that they could be in control. In fact, the idea of these four aspects of society really came from the Vedas, but this was misrepresented. What the Vedas speak about is that all living beings have these four aspects within them. One is that we have the power of knowledge. 2 is that we have the power and the ability to protect ourselves. 3 is that we have the ability to find resources. And 4 is that we have the power and the ability to work for what we aspire for. So all these 4 aspects are within us. And those are the 4 aspects that we need to improve. Unfortunately, that is not what happened. And when the idea of superiority came in, obviously there were abuses. People started to treat others badly. And this happens all over the world. We have seen that there are people who think that they are superior and that they can hurt others, or they can mistreat others whom they believe to be inferior to them. So obviously this has to change in the world. And therefore this system collapsed and it earned a distasteful name. So India has survived a lot of invasions, a lot of foreign rule, social disruptions, and yet today it is a very powerful nation in the world. It is one of the world leaders. I'd like to end my presentation with a greeting, Namaste. Namaste means I bow to you who are my own divine reflection. You and I are one and the same. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.